the Young Dudes by MsKingBean89. Chapter 104. 6th year, Bad Moon Rising. Tuesday, 1st January 1977. Here they come! Sirius was practically bouncing next to Remus as they watched the horseless carriages approaching the castle gates. Thank God, Remus joked. Some intelligent conversation. Oh, shut up. You love me, really. Sirius kicked him in the shin. I do, Remus thought, pitifully. I really bloody do. But of course, that was not what Sirius had meant. James disembarked from the mysteriously drawn carriages like a soldier returning from war. He and Sirius beamed at each other until Remus thought that the two of them ought to be snogging, not Sirius and Remus. Lily and Peter climbed out with the carriage behind, and Remus hugged her and nodded to him. Good Christmas, Lily asked. Thanks for the chocolates. Thanks for the gloves, he replied, waving them at her to demonstrate. Really warm. Yeah, cheers for the gloves, Evans. James waved his own wool-coloured hands. Lily blushed deeply and mumbled something about not wanting to leave anyone out. Earlier, Remus and Sirius had walked alone through a castle of empty halls, echoing and hushed with the whispers of the portraits and the eerie drifting ghosts. But as they all returned together, it was as if the school was transformed in an instant. The flagstones rattled with the busy chatter of friends reuniting, every arc and column filled with black-robed students. Remus felt he was awakening from a strange and quiet dream. It was incredible how quickly everything settled back to normal. Peter and Desdemona started a fight almost immediately. Lily asked James halfway through dinner. Mary had tales of her newest boyfriend, which Marlene was rolling her eyes at. Sirius had eyes only for James, of course, but Remus was keenly aware of the looks he was getting from other quarters. All of the unanswered Christmas cards would be coming home to roost. So, what did you two get up to? James asked, mouth full of roast beef. You didn't give much away when we spoke. Sirius and Remus looked at each other, only for the tiniest moment, long enough for Remus to note the spark of panic in Sirius's eyes, and grin at James. Spent most of it trying to keep Padfoot out of trouble, obviously. James and Peter laughed, and that was all anyone needed. Sirius settled back, shoulders lowering, and Remus watched him from underneath his eyelashes. This wasn't going to work. It was all too impossible. The night before, just before he drifted to sleep, Remus had made a decision. He had to talk to Sirius. The irony was not lost on him. That was after days and days of nothing but talking. The solution seemed to be more talking. But this time, he would make Sirius listen. He only needed an opportunity, which he accepted would not be easy. Opportunity, and just a bit more time. He wasn't brave enough just yet. Just now, every song he heard reminded him of Sirius. Every soppy sentence in every novel. Maybe he wasn't quite ready to give it all up. Sirius certainly wasn't. Remus had tried questioning him after everyone had been back for a few days, and Sirius had accepted an invitation to Hogsmeade from Emily and Vance. Don't you think we ought to stop? Isn't it a bit confusing for you? Why would it be confusing? It's not the same thing. Sirius raised his eyebrows in genuine surprise. Oh, Remus said, quietly. He was glad they were in a cupboard, and it was dark. Oh, isn't it? Well, no. She's a girl. You're Moony. What does that mean? It just means, you know, you and me, we're not, and she, Oh, for goodness sake. He got irritated and gave up explaining. I just can't see any reason to stop, okay? It's fun, isn't it? Yeah, Remus sighed. Look, if someone asked you out, that would be fun, obviously. Right, Remus nodded. That's nice of you. Oh, come on, don't be like that. Sirius started kissing his neck. And Remus was in no position to argue after that. He'd had plenty of opportunities, really. He was as weak as Sirius when all was said and done. Besides, it was just a secret, as Sirius had once said, long before everything got complicated. You're not Moony if you don't have a secret. He could do secrets, except it was getting harder, especially around the full moon, when his nerves were thinnest and every emotion burned just beneath the surface. Then he would see Sirius with some girl or another, watch as she picked the fluff from his skilled jumper, straighten his tie, wrap her arms around his waist, and he would want to tear her to pieces. Sometimes he thought it must be so obvious. Surely everyone could tell. Surely James could tell. Remus would be sitting with them, or walking beside them, or eating breakfast, and his eyes would catch Sirius's. And how could no one else feel it? It made him feel guilty. Remus wondered if he was lying to Sirius even more than Sirius was lying to himself. Remus was being dishonest about what he had wanted, how much everything had meant to him. And in the end, he could see that he was confusing Sirius even more. The best thing was to lay everything out and deal with the consequences. Not yet, though. Maybe after the full moon. Thursday, 6th January 1977. Remus woke up outside. This was very wrong. The sky above was blue and cracked with clouds. There were trees, black, crooked branches. The breeze was cool on his skin, and the leaf litter soft and mulchy beneath him. Not right, but more pleasant than usual. He blinked against the morning light and looked around to see his three friends watching him cautiously. Sirius pulled off his cloak quickly and handed it to Remus. "Here, it's chilly." "What happened? Why aren't we back in the shack?" Remus frowned, pulling the cloak around himself. He noticed that James was panting hard and holding his arm in a strange way. "Did I hurt you, Prongs?" "Not on purpose," James shook his head, obviously keen to keep Remus calm. You kept trying to get away from us, that's all. We couldn't get you to follow us like normal, not even Padfoot." "I remember," Remus frowned and climbed to his feet. "Were we hunting?" "You were," Sirius said, looking at him oddly. "There was something you really wanted to get at. In Hogsmeade." "In Hogsmeade?" It all came flooding back like a bad dream. That scent. He'd smelled it first on Christmas Eve in the hogshead, and even then he had known what it was. How could he be so stupid? "You're sure you're not hurt?" Remus asked, again, looking at James. James nodded fervently, his messy hair bobbing in the morning breeze. "Come on," he jerked his head. "We've got to get you back to the shack before Madame Pomfrey gets there." He followed them, treading gingerly over the stony forest in bare feet. "We're not too far," Sirius said, walking slowly beside him. "We managed to sort of shepherd you in the right direction, but you kept trying to give us the slip." "You all have to get back to the castle," Remus said, unable to meet their eyes. I think something might have happened last night." "Nothing happened, Mooney," Peter said. "We didn't lose sight of you once, honestly." "That's good," Remus nodded. The shack was in sight now, but you still ought to go. Trust me. Thankfully, they did, all still shaken by whatever had taken place just before Remus had returned to his human body. Remus entered the shack, dressed, and sat quietly on the bed to wait for Madame Pomfrey. She did not come. Instead, it was McGonagall who opened the trapdoor, almost an hour after daybreak. "Mr. Lupin," she said, in the usual brisk manner she used when a detention was forthcoming. "Where's Madame Pomfrey?" he asked, feeling very cold all of a sudden. "She's on other business this morning, in Hogsmeade," the professor said, a face lined with concern. "She asked me to attend to you." "Are you injured?" "No, I'm fine." "What happened in Hogsmeade?" "Come along, Lupin," his teacher said, turning quickly back down the tunnel. "If you're quite well, then we should be getting back to the castle as quickly as possible." "Please," he had to walk quickly to keep up with her, which wasn't easy when your bones were all still settling back into their usual places. "Please, Professor, what happened in Hogsmeade?" "I'm afraid I can't. It was a werewolf, wasn't it? An attack?" "Remus." She turned and looked at him. They were eye-level these days, and he was still growing. "How do you know?" she asked, sharply. "I could smell it. The other one. I knew they were nearby." "It wasn't me, I swear." "No, we would know if you had escaped." She seemed very sure about that, so he didn't object. "Was it bad?" "Yes." "Someone's dead?" "I'm afraid so." Now, I really can't talk about it, so let's just get you back to the castle, alright? I know that Poppy usually keeps you in the infirmary for a day or so to rest, but do you think you could go back to your lessons as usual today? I think it might be best to avoid any suspicion. Of course. You can come to me if you feel unwell at any point. I'll be fine. His voice was low and empty. He had never met another one. Now he knew there was one close by. Remus, McGonagall said, giving him a severe look. This was not your fault. This was nobody's fault. Do you understand? Yes, Professor. It was better to just tell adults what they wanted to hear most of the time. Perhaps he could write to Ferox, or even Moody. Remus desperately wanted to talk to Sirius about it, privately, but he supposed he might have to wait a little while. He knew it all now. There had been another wolf in Hogsmeade over Christmas, and it had been waiting for the full moon. They had to be on Voldemort's side, on Greyback's side, because, in Remus's opinion at least, you'd have to be mad or evil or both to place yourself near other people during a full moon. Ought he to have told somebody that he'd recognised the smell on Christmas Eve? Could he have saved a life? He hadn't been sure, and he hadn't wanted to get in trouble for sneaking out. The breakfast hall was buzzing with the news. Owls were flying back and forth. Lily sat deliberately next to Remus and squeezed his hand under the table. He squeezed back, gratefully, and thought how easy it would be to fall in love with her, if he was that type of man. It's horrible, Marlene said, tearfully, reading the paper over Mary's shoulder. That poor woman murdered in her bed. It had been a young couple who had moved to Hogsmeade in November, both magical, but she was Muggle-born. She was dead, her husband bitten, and apparently at St. Mungo's. Their wedding photo graced on the front page of the Prophet and made Remus sick to look at. Is it still on the loose? Remus asked, keeping the hand which was not loaded in Lily's flat on the table, so nobody could see him trembling. Looks like, Mary confirmed, still engrossed in the article. No one could catch it. Tonight's not a full moon, so we're safe for at least another month, I suppose. That's the trouble with werewolves. If you don't catch them on the moon, then how are you supposed to catch them at all? There must be a test or something, Marlene frowned. A revealing charm. Yeah, Mary replied, thoughtfully. Maybe, but then you might end up finding the wrong one. Well, it sounds like they're all on you-know-whose side anyway, so I don't think it matters. Let's talk about something else, Lily said, loudly. Yeah, James nodded. Defense against the dark arts next. Anyone had luck with their Patronus yet? Only James had, so far. Half an hour later, the class stood slack-jawed and watched James produce a spectacular silver stag, which galloped so ghostly around the room. The teacher applauded and invited everyone else to try, with varying levels of success. Lily managed to whisper something, but it wasn't clear yet what it was. Peter had no luck at all, and, to the surprise of nobody, Sirius cast something distinctly dog-shaped, but without the solid brightness of James's creation. Remus didn't so much as feel his one flinch. He oughtn't to have been surprised. On a morning like that, it was impossible to pin down a happy thought for very long. Besides which, he was exhausted from the full moon. You'll get it, Moony, Sirius encouraged, patting him awkwardly on the back as they left the classroom. You always do. Remus nodded, wondering what Sirius's happy thought was. Remus had been using various memories of their Christmas together, though with poor results. My mind's elsewhere, to be honest, he said, quietly, so that only Sirius could hear him. Of course, Sirius replied, just as quietly. That's to be expected. I knew about it, Remus whispered, quickly, as the last few students left the room. Sirius stopped, staring at him with that awful look he'd had that morning. Remus grabbed his arm. I mean, not exactly. I didn't know that would happen, but... Sirius closed the door behind the last student and whispered a silencing spell. But what? Remember when we went to the Hogshead? Remus said, quickly, and still whispering, because he couldn't seem to raise his voice. Sirius nodded. I smelled something. I thought you were just pissed. Yeah, Remus nodded. I think maybe I did too. I thought it was, well, you, because I wanted... He cleared his throat. Anyway, it was definitely another one, a werewolf. I think it was a female. Not greyback then, Sirius said, with a look of immense relief. No, Remus said. Well, thank Godric for that. Sirius grasped Remus's shoulder. His face turned to worry again, just as quickly. But Moony, if you could smell them, do you think they could... I don't know. I think so. Okay, well, they didn't come after you, so everything will be fine. He was still holding Remus by the shoulder, keeping him in place like an anchor. It was desperately needed, Remus thought. Every instinct in him said to run. Remus thought for a moment Sirius might kiss him, but they had another lesson to go to, and the Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher had returned, knocking on his own classroom door in confusion. Sirius looked disappointed, or at least Remus thought so. It might have been wishful thinking, and gave a final squeeze before they parted. Don't tell James, Remus said, hurriedly, as they unlocked the door. Please don't tell anyone. Okay, Moony, Sirius nodded, slowly. Anything you want.